Hello and welcome to Oklahoma on Stage, the go-to spot for all things theater in the great state of Oklahoma. We're so glad you've joined us. Whether you are a first-time visitor or a seasoned supporter, all are welcome here. We really hope you enjoy your time with us. If you'd like to connect with us, look for us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, or our website at oklahomaonstage.org. If you have any comments or questions, you can email us at oklahomaonstage@gmail.com. We'd love it if you could give us a rating and/or review. That helps us grow. You can also help us grow by sharing the podcast with people you know. Now, if you're ready, grab a snack and your favorite drink and take your seat. The show is about to begin.
Oklahoma on stage, the stories come alive. With drama, dance, and music, the arts always thrive. From center stage to backstage lore, Oklahoma on stage, there's always something more.
Welcome back to Oklahoma's On Stage, your go-to podcast for all things theater in the state of Oklahoma. I am sitting here today in the historic Washita Theater in lovely Chickasha, Oklahoma. Sitting here with my guests today, and I'll just roll right into the intro and get this party started. From humble beginnings in Minco, Oklahoma, to multiple degrees in theater, to the director's chair, my guest today has carved out a legacy in Oklahoma theater that's as bold as it is heartfelt. With a dual degree in music and theater from USAO, a master's degree from Kansas State, and a resume that spans beloved roles in several theaters across the state, she's a standout voice in Oklahoma's theater scene, both on stage and behind the curtain. Today, we're diving into the stories that shaped her, the impact of the community theater, and what comes next. Actress, director, educator, advocate, Oklahoma On Stage family, please welcome Shannan Bilyeu to the podcast.
Thank you.
Did I say that right?
No one ever does.
No one ever does.
It's Bilyeu.
Bilyeu.
Yeah.
See, I thought that's what the way, so it actually is spelled exactly the way it sounds.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I thought,
But I mean that a lot.
Yeah.
But
Bilyeu. Okay. All right. There we go. So welcome.
thank you so much for having me.
So, as I said, we're here in the Washita Theater. This is the site of your show that is coming up, and we'll get into more of that here in just a little bit. But as we always do, the elephant in the room, how did you get started in theater?
So I actually got started in theater on accident. I was a music major at USAO out of Chickasha, and I thought I was auditioning for like a show choir glee club situation, and it turned out to be a musical review. And so I got into singing and dancing and acting unintentionally. I got cast in that production. And of course, that's where it all started because I enjoyed that so much. I was taking classes for fun and then realized I just had another semester left and I could have 2 degrees. So I was like, why not stay in college a little longer? So I did that. And that's how I got my 2 degrees, one in music and one in theater.
So what was the spark that caused all of the interest in theater?
Honestly, it was just that there was more than singing. If you would have asked me when I was in elementary school what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was a general answer, singer. I just wanted to sing. That's all I wanted to do. And so that's why I thought music was my path, because all I wanted to do was sing. And so whenever I accidentally auditioned for that musical review and realized that there could be more to it than just choral singing or for those that want to be a pop star on stage or that sort of thing, like I really enjoyed the added elements of the costumes and being on stage with others to tell a story, that sort of thing. And so I started kind of experimenting more and auditioning for more things such as straight plays or not just keeping it musical based. And I just kind of found more of what I was looking for that I didn't even know I was looking for till I found it, if that makes sense.
I think that's most of us are that way. As I've said several times with different elements, you don't know what you don't know. And so that's a really good. So you spent, as we said before, you spent time at USAO and then transitioned to Kansas State?
Yes.
Was that a follow-up or was there, something that led you there right after, or?
I had a friend who knew I was graduating, and she had already completed her first year at Kansas State. And she was like, "Have you thought about going to grad school? They have a good program up here. You should come out." And I was like, "No, I think I'm done with school." And then I went and visited her, and I was like, it wouldn't be so bad. It's not gonna hurt. If anything, it'll help. So I just went ahead and decided to pursue the theater masters instead of the music, and I followed that path instead. Um, I just had a natural instinct and mindset for stage management. And so I just felt like I was more drawn to that path. And so I got my master's there at Kansas State and got to act a little, do a little stage managing stuff there. So I was influenced by just a friend kind of making me aware of an opportunity. I didn't necessarily have a plan after undergraduate outside of just getting a job and, starting my life. But I'm really glad that I was able to take that next step and go on to get my master's, because that was some of the best years of education that I had.
Nice. So your time both at UCO and Kansas State, how did they shape you artistically?
I was able to find parts of myself I didn't know existed, if that makes sense, because my years in undergrad were a little more difficult because I was just figuring things out. I had never really acted before. Elementary school, you have your Christmas program, you have those sort of things. But growing up in Mako, there wasn't a lot of opportunities for theater, for drama. It would be randomly every couple of years, there'd be one class. And unfortunately, I was never available for when those one classes came around. I was always doing something else. So I missed out on opportunities at a young age. So I was figuring things out at the collegiate level with people who had been doing it all through high school, and they knew that's who they wanted to be. So I felt a little behind in that aspect, but also paying attention and trying to keep up really motivated me. So I was able to kind of just delve in and figure out how I wanted to tell stories, figure out what part of the production I wanted to be a part of, which is kind of why I'm ping-ponging around through the different areas, as you mentioned earlier, with the directing and stage management and acting. Like, I believe, just from my experience, that you will be better at a different area if you allow yourself to try another department within that same world. I've become a better actress because I've stage managed, because I've costumed a show, because I've ran crew, and then vice versa. You just become more aware of the production as a whole and how it fits together, instead of that tunnel vision of just doing this one job the whole time.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with that anymore. That was very well said. So during your time, did you have any mentors that really impacted you?
I had a couple in my music department. Dr. Jan Hansen was a huge support, and she also helped with the musicals that were going on at USAO, because it's a small enough college that, they kind of go hand in hand with the theater department at that time. And she was a big supporter of me and a cheerleader. And in the theater department, it was ran by one person, Roger Drummond, and he pushed me in the best ways possible. He saw something in me that I wasn't aware of. He thought I had a natural stage presence, a natural talent, and he was really trying to mold that, if that makes sense. Because like I said, I had no experience coming in, and I was up against these people who had done it for years in high school. And so I hate saying up against, because we're all in it together, but that's how it felt when you're the person behind.
Well, I think we all have a sense of competition when it comes to a lot of this stuff. But you're right. I mean, we are a family, and it's best when we support and celebrate the victories of others. So
Yeah.
So that's very good. What about productions? Did you have any formative or memorable productions through that growing process?
So for my undergrad, there was a production, I think it was my junior year, called Vanities. It's a 3-woman show, and I was Kathy in that production. And that's when all the pieces started to click, as far as I was also helping with costumes with that show. So it was starting to click how things come together on both sides. How I mentioned earlier, if you do different departments, it will help you be better in the other. So that's when I started putting real pieces together of making characters more realistic instead of just standing on stage memorizing lines. We see that so much with people starting out because they think, oh, this is acting. I've memorized this. I'm standing here. And it took me a while to understand there's just a little bit more. Like, you have to give more of yourself to present this other person, which might sound odd to people who aren't involved, but that's really what it is. You're bringing the essence of a real person through yourself in the best way that you can communicate that to the audience.
That's really good. I like that. So, talking about your roles, you've had some pretty standout roles. You've played in productions like Pippin. You mentioned Vanities, How to Heal the Hurt by Hating.
Yes.
And most recently, you got to play Miss Helga Tendorp in Death Trap.
I sure did.
Alongside myself. So we had a lot of fun together with that role. So with that, what draws you to a particular character?
I really get involved with telling the story, and you'll hear me say that so many times. If I read a script, it's not always the lead. That's the story I want to tell. It's easy to get caught up in wanting to be the lead because, there's so much more to do and the script gives you so much more. But there's such a joy when you find these side characters that really there's no wrong answer when you make up what's missing in the pages of the script, right? So, and it also allows more time to play and figure those things out because you're not so focused on, I have to memorize these lines. Everyone's counting on me. I have the most to say, and so I have found myself as I read scripts, like who I want to tell their story, who I might connect with on a different level. And the role of Helga was just a fluke. I was so lucky to get that. I wasn't 100% sure what I was doing at the auditions. Like, I just went in and I was like, you know what? This is what I have to offer. And luckily they liked it.
It hit it. It was perfect.
I wasn't sure. So it was very nice that worked out.
And the amazing things, much like you said, a lot of those characters, they're flavor additives for the show. They're there for the season of the show. But at the same time, kind of like you said, you have kind of a blank canvas in bringing that character to life, and you're free to do so many different things. And with that, you brought a lot of life to the show.
Yeah.
There was a lot of a lightness that you brought to a fairly dark show. Mm-hmm. and I thought that was really, really great. So
one of the greatest compliments I've gotten with both Death Trap and then recently prior, I was in a production of Into the Woods where I played Jack's mom, and people after the show, people I don't know, very kind, would come up and they'd be like, there were times where I'd be like, when is she coming back on stage? We're ready for Helga to come back, or we're ready for Jack's mom. And that means so much because that means you're doing the job, right? Like you're doing well enough that people want to see more of you, and you're not getting stagnant and they're not getting bored of you. So I felt like mission accomplished, in those cases.
So do you approach acting differently now than when you were at, say, USAO or KSU?
Oh, absolutely. But I think a lot of that just comes with repetition and experience and life experience, not just stage experience, because you can be a 19-year-old college student playing a 40-year-old person, but not really get it because you're missing years of life experience that just kind of helps build those characters. And those experiences are so important anyway to help you develop your skills as an actor. But there are multiple roles that I would love to get another shot at now because I feel like I would understand that person a little better. So yeah, I do approach it differently, just in that now I have more life experience and stage experience to kind of grasp what we're trying to say and what we can do on the stage.
So let's talk about your approach to comedic roles versus dramatic roles.
Okay.
So how do you approach the two?
I have such a hard time with comedy. They make me nervous, whether I'm directing, stage managing, or acting on stage. Comedies make me nervous. I enjoy them. I just feel like if I'm not uncomfortable, I'm not doing it right. You have to be willing to make yourself silly. You have to be willing to make yourself ugly in some cases and let go of that fear of people judging you that so often comes. Like, we put ourselves on display with theater, and actors more so than backstage, because if you do your job right backstage, people don't notice you, right? So we put ourselves on display, and when you do that in a comedic sense, for me, it's more terrifying than the dramatic sense, because I feel like drama is easier to relate to overall, because even if people aren't willing to discuss or admit their drama while they're watching it, they can connect with emotions and feelings. And I just love to bring those intense moments on stage. So with comedy, I'm still learning and I'm still discovering who I am on stage, but I have been given recently so many opportunities to kind of exercise those muscles, and I've really been enjoying it. Been very appreciative of those opportunities.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, what is your life like outside of theater?
So outside of theater, I work in human resources for the University of Central Oklahoma, and I'm, as you know, and I'm sure many of your listeners know, outside of theater life is limited, because once you commit to a show, that's a huge time commitment. And that's what a lot of new people coming in don't realize. So limited time outside of that and my day-to-day job, we are spending a lot of time that we can with our family, me and my husband, and just personal things we like to do is going to the movies. And of course, I'm always going to the theater myself, trying to support fellow colleagues in the field, and then also just movies because we enjoy cinematic adventures.
What's a good movie you've seen lately?
I have not seen any lately. However, I plan to go see Jurassic Park before it leaves the theaters. So cool.
All right. I've been excited because the Fantastic Four has made it, and I have yet to even get close to a movie theater. So maybe I'll see it when it comes to Disney. Who knows? So, is there someone in your life outside of theater that has shaped how you see the world?
That is a great question. And I'm probably going to have to go with my grandparents on my mother's side. They kind of stepped in and helped raise me and my siblings. We grew up right next door to our grandparents, and I did not realize how much of a blessing that was until I became an adult and made friends who didn't even know their grandparents. Like, they knew who they were because of holidays and things, but they didn't have relationships with their grandparents. And I wasn't as close with my grandparents on my father's side, but I was certainly closer with both sets of grandparents than anyone I knew, which blew my mind. And it could just be small town Oklahoma. But they really shaped me into the person that I am. And I'm sure anyone can say this for any of their family members. We learn things that we want to keep, and we learn things that we want to let go of. So I have to credit both of them for that.
Oh, that's so cool. So, what is your favorite way to totally unplug and recharge?
I have 2 chihuahuas named Dude and Guy, and I will sit on a recliner with my feet up covered in those chihuahuas. And honestly, I don't even need anything on. I don't need my phone. I don't need the television. Just some people like to be outside and do what's it called, grounding, where you just like barefoot and reconnect. I'm not your outside person. Don't invite me to go outside ever. But that's kind of my grounding, like just in a comfortable place in the quiet. And all they want to do is sleep on me, so they don't care. As long as the recliner's up and they can lay down, they're fine. But that's just kind of how I recharge.
Cool. So, what is something that you geek out over that most people don't know?
Oh, that most people don't know? So I like cryptids and cryptozoology, which is like Sasquatch, Loch Ness Monster, Chupacabra, like those kind of creatures that may or may not exist. And so I get kind of geeked out and excited about those kind of things, whether it is a movie or an event. There's a Bigfoot festival that happens in Oklahoma each year. And I've been to that. And then there's another one that was happening in Anadarko, Oklahoma. But they didn't do it last year, so I don't know if it'll be coming back. But it's just nice to think, what if, and just have a little fun and not get too serious about things. But I enjoy those.
I had a friend of mine was traveling with a theater company. He was just up in Pennsylvania, I think, North New England, and the town that he was in, they were having an international cryptid festival. So he said they didn't go to the festival, he said, but they did go see some of the sites and things like that. So it was a pretty big deal. Now, we asked the question that you geek out over that most people don't know, and we understand that there are a lot of people that do know that you do geek out about Saved by the Bell.
Oh, yeah, that's not a secret. That is my trivia team category. If you need someone to come in clutch, I'm your girl. I was given the Saved by the Bell board game at a young age when the show was popular and things came out, and I corrected some of the trivia questions because they were wrong. And so, yes.
Did you contact the company, the creator?
Part of reasons people didn't do that back in the 1900s.
Okay, so shifting gears just a little bit, we're talking about where we're at right now. We're talking about your show that's coming up. You're currently directing The Elephant Man here at Shakespeare Theater. So what drew you to this piece?
As a director, I regularly get drawn to stories that I feel show compassion, human nature, the way we have relationships with others. Like, I'm really drawn to the stories that are a little more serious, a little deeper. And The Elephant Man was just one of those stories where he just had a simple request. He just wanted to be treated like any other person. And he thought he found someone that could help him do that. And we learned through the story that it's just all still, like, everything's the same. Like, you'll hear people say, well, everything's high school. It's just you're in a different setting or that sort of thing. You know, like, we kind of learned that through the story with the Elephant Man. Like, he wants to be treated as an equal, but it's just never quite going to happen for him under whatever circumstances as the story goes on. And so I love to tell those stories to just kind of help us be aware of not just how we treat people, but how we see ourselves and others.
Very nice. So how do you navigate the emotional weight of the text and the historical context of the story?
So some of the things have already been taken care of. As one of the questions I'm getting from everybody is, what are you going to do about the way he looks and his prosthetics and all of that? And this script, this version of The Elephant Man specifically says in the beginning, don't get caught up with that. Don't do the prosthetics. Tell the story. Tell the story. And so that's what we're doing. And we just, by that alone, it's helped the actors just become more connected because we're not getting caught up in, and we're not even in costumes yet, but we're not getting caught up in what things look like. We get caught up in the words and the relationships and the story that's being told. The first act of it is a whole bunch of small, quick scenes that kind of lead us up to whenever he gets into the hospital to where he lives and eventually dies. And so as we develop those short scenes, we have a very small amount of time to present these people, some based on real people that we're able to research and some based on people to help move the story along. And so we've just been taking time, concentrating on what does this mean, and given the information we have, not knowing whether or not it's fully accurate, just how would we react in this place with this person? And we talk about personal stories. We have a lot of chit chat in the rehearsal process as far as making it real, making it relatable. And that kind of helps when people are able to put it on the same level of something that they're able to understand in their own lives so that they can present that to the audience.
That's one thing that I've always loved. That's one I'm extremely drawn to the classics of literature and going on the stage and things like that. And, you know, one of the things that I talked about with the crew, cast and crew, when we did the Diary of Anne Frank, is that, you know, so many of these scripts that we do as actors, they're fictional people.
Right.
yes, we have to create elements, we have to do, but when you do things like the Diary of Anne Frank or the Elephant Man, these were real people. I mean, you can Google it or whatever, and you can find documented evidence of these people, what they went through, all of that stuff. And so their stories have to be told. And that's kind of where these, and I've said it before, and you mentioned it just a few minutes ago, is that we as actors, our number one role, our number one job is storytelling. We have to be able to tell stories. The challenge becomes, how well are we going to tell that story? How true are we going to tell the story?
This is one of those art forms that I feel is never going to go away, no matter how much technology we have. People are going to tell stories. We're going to, whether it's a story about someone you really do know and you're just passing that on, or if you're sitting around with a group of people and just for fun, like telling stories goes back so far, and we want to be true to that. I use the general we want to be true to that, especially when dealing with real people, and do our research. And not everyone's story is a good one, but that doesn't mean their story shouldn't be told.
Right. My mom saw several of my shows when I was, several years back, and she said, I don't want to come and watch you play a bad guy. And I'm like, well, a lot of stories can't be told if there isn't an opposite side. And, it's like I tell everybody, somebody's got to play Judas.
Right.
Somebody's got to play, the bad guy in every story in order for the story to be complete.
Exactly.
Now, granted, some of the stories you have to figure out who the bad guy is. But, I agree, some people don't like all those stories, but I'm glad that you're telling. So, of your cast, are they all experienced actors, or do you have new people? Or?
No, we actually have a handful that this might be their second show, or they've only worked backstage on some shows and this is their first time on stage. And then we have a couple of seasoned actors that are playing. We have a couple playing I got tongue-tied. The Elephant Man and Dr. Treves, a couple of seasoned actors in those roles. And I like to mesh those experiences together because that's how I learned, and if you're able to work with other people and take the opportunity that's given to you, not see it how we mentioned competition earlier, because that underlying competition is always going to be there, but take the opportunity that you're given and just watch the other people around you work. And that goes for the experienced actors too. Like, if we get far enough in the process of any show I direct, I like to have a night where everybody switches scripts, we draw a role out of the hat, and that's your role for the night. And the idea is to get people out of their stagnant repetition and maybe see something in their character that they didn't see before. Because again, you get that tunnel vision when you're doing it every night and you're trying to make it solid for the show. Yes, we want the same show every night, but it's also important to take a step back and think about things another way. And if we don't either do that, we'll do something along the lines of opposite intention night. So if you're doing a heavy drama, we're going to do it as a comedy tonight and see those places where it works, because in some point in every story, it doesn't matter if you're doing a comedy or a drama, there's going to be that flip. How you talk, there's not always all good people. Sometimes there's a villain, we got to find all those things.
So how does your process differ in dealing with new actors versus seasoned actors?
We take time explaining basics so everyone understands kind of the terminology that I forget not everybody knows, right? We just get so used to our lingo in the theater world. And I also take a lot of time, how I said we chit chat a lot. And I mean that as asking questions, doing research. Some theaters like to do warm-up games, that sort of thing. I'll get homework to some of my actors. And we had our first night after our read-through, their homework was to come back and give us 2 truths and a lie about the character that they play. So if it's a real person, they had to do their research and they had to do the 2 truths and a lie, and then the rest of the company would would guess what it was, and then we'd talk about it just a little bit. We'd go through. So we try to make it fun, but we're also doing a lot of work.
That's great. So how has your experience as an actress, how has that influenced your directing style?
I think being aware of needs is probably the best word. So there used to be, I guess I should take it back a little further. So after graduating from grad school, I went in the professional direction of stage management and loved it. But after a few years of that, I really found myself not liking actors. I thought they were so needy, and I would like, just do the job, like your job is this. And so I was like, I need to get back into acting, because if I can't appreciate the art that the other person is doing on the other side of the production, I don't need to be here. So I forced myself to get back on stage and remind myself of what brought me into theater in the first place, because I accidentally auditioned for a show, not knowing what I was doing. So and I didn't start directing until just a few years ago. This is probably one of the newest steps I've taken in theater. So after I went back on stage as an actor, that's when I flipped and wanted to try out directing a little bit. And so I think that approach is what helped me get better. And I'm always reminding, especially the new actors, because I remember how frustrating it was to do something one way, and then the director being like, okay, try it this way. And you're like, okay, great. So you change it in your book and you do it the next way. And then in about 2 weeks, they change it back to the first way. And I would get so frustrated, because I'd be like, that's what I was doing the first time. Never to them, but in my head, I was just like, this isn't making sense to me. So I try as a director to be very verbal about my thought process and be like, we might change this back. I need to see this, multiple ways. And then also remind people, on stage, you're only seeing it from one perspective. You think that you're speaking loud enough. You think that you're moving your body in the way that makes sense. But on the flip side, from the audience perspective, from the director's perspective, you're looking at the production as a whole. You're not looking at each individual actor's performance as a solo act. You have to look at it up against set. You have to look at it up against the rest of the company. Is someone sticking out in a bad way because apparently they're in their own show and they're not in this show? So for me, it's a lot of just verbalizing what's going on in my head so that the actors are comfortable and know where I'm coming from. And hopefully that helps alleviate some of their frustration, because I remember what that's like.
That is so cool. I've always said, for me, been asked several times, is that a hill that you want to die on? My sword, my trumpet, whatever hill I want to die on is your level of communication. And I think that is so great, the way that you verbalize your process, because, if you don't, they don't know what you're doing. If they don't know what you're doing, then the people out there don't know what you're doing. And
apparently my thinking face is very intimidating, because I get asked a lot if I'm mad or if I'm what, but I'm trying to process, and then that way I could tell you. But apparently my face, it gives me away every time.
Okay, girl. So what do you hope that audiences will take away from this production of The Elephant Man?
I just hope. So I know a lot of people are familiar with the movie, and this is not that. It's a different adaptation. It's the same general people, but it's not the same story in the way that it unfolds. But of course, you have your general markers that everybody knows because it's a historical person. But so I'm hoping that people just come in with an open mind and walk out of this experience being able to think a little clearer, or just a little more aware of how we look at others and what that means. Because you'll see all over the internets, you never know how bad of a day a person's having, and spread kindness and all that sort of thing. And I think stories like this just kind of help present it a little more, because some people saw him as an easy way to make money. Some people saw him as a charity case. And he was just a man. He was just trying to live his life the best way he could.
I think that's something that we desperately need in these times. Even in the environment that we're in the theater realm, theater community, there is always still that struggle to fit in.
Yeah.
And we deal with so many people that they feel on the outside of society, they feel like they don't belong, and so they come to theater so that they can be a part of that family. And then they find even in that family, there's places that they don't fit in.
Right.
And so, my biggest thing for all of you guys listening, if you ever feel that way, just keep going. There is something in theater for everybody.
It really
And everybody has a place. And so I don't ever want anybody to think that they don't fit into a theater. And yeah, you may not get a role in a certain play, just maybe because they're focusing on a certain time period and they're looking for a certain look and things like that. But there will come a time when you'll be able to shine. And
every show I stage manage and direct, I try to take the time towards the end of the production to let everyone know in the company as a whole, if you did not enjoy this experience, don't give up on theater. Try a different type of show, whether it's a different genre or we're doing a musical, try a straight play, that sort of thing. Or if you're on stage and it just wasn't for you, try something else. Try lights, try costuming, try choreography. Like, don't give up on it just because you had one bad experience.
absolutely. So shifting gears from the show to the location, you've worked with Chickasha Community Theater for several years.
Yeah.
I guess you might call this home.
Yeah.
Okay. Talking about what did I have here? You've acted in productions here like Made Over Buffalo, Rest in Peace. So you've been doing this again for a while. How has this theater evolved over that time, and what role do you see it playing in the community of Cushing itself? Or it's not Cushing, Chickasha. There's too many C's in Oklahoma.
So this theater has really helped me stretch my legs as far as this is the theater I started directing regularly at. I had one other opportunity when I was working in Iowa to direct a show. That was my first production. And here I've been able to choreograph. I've been able to stage manage, direct, and act. And so Chickasha Community Theater has helped me grow on that end. And I feel that this theater is doing so much for this town of Chickasha as far as exposing people not just to the arts, but to talents they may not know that they had. And there are still people in the town of Chickasha to this day that don't even know we exist, And I'm sure you come up with that in some of your other theaters and other towns that you go visit. And it just blows our mind because Chickasha is not so big to not know that we're, here. So I think the more that we're able to get out into the community with small things that we have done in the past, as far as we have a wine theater coming up at a local winery. We did one last year as well. And so just bringing ourselves out of this building to kind of help expose more people to the arts and let them know, hey, we're here. Even if you just want to come watch or come be a part. People think that just because they don't want to be in a show, they have nothing to give. But, we can use your support, whether it's in a chair or just word of mouth if you know somebody else that might be interested.
Yeah, even if you don't want to be on stage, we always need people in the box office. We always need people front of house. We need people in concessions, all that stuff. Everybody's got something.
They're always, yeah.
Yeah, if you can turn a screwdriver, there's a place for you. So tell us a little bit about Chickasha. I know you brought a little bit of history with you, so tell us a little bit about the theater.
So the theater currently stands in the Ouachita building downtown Chickasha, which was built in 1941 as a movie theater. And then they closed their doors in 2001, and Chickasha Community Theater was able to buy the building and kind of renovate it. And then around 2010, they opened their doors as their home theater. So before the Ouachita was available, they were going wherever they could to perform. They would be at junior highs, they would be at Votex or churches, rehearsing wherever and doing their set builds basically week of show and just kind of, working it out, living the theater life. And so now that they have a building to call their own, to call home, it has really worked out to be a lovely space. It's a 3-story building, so there's storage for all the pieces that we need. And so from there, they were able to kind of develop a scholarship for high school students in 1997. And that still goes on to this day, just to help the kids that have been involved for multiple years go on, whether or not it's theater-based, but to further their education and just as a give back. And that money comes from our patrons throughout the season on how much we're able to get those students to help them move forward.
So how many seats are in this theater?
I believe that we are close to 250 or 300. They have taken some seats out. There are some seats that are broken. It's an old movie theater, so just as things are happening. I'm sure the dream is to get more comfortable seats someday, But yeah, it's a good space.
How many shows do they run a season?
That will vary, but it can run between 5 to 7 each season.
Wow, that's a busy season.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to kind of just drift a little bit away from the theater on this question. So what's unique about making theater in Oklahoma? You mentioned would be going out of Oklahoma and doing some of the theater. So what do you think makes Oklahoma theater different than any place else?
I don't have a lot of experience outside of Oklahoma. I do have a little, and just honestly, what I've noticed is that people are just they're willing to try something they've never done before. That's what I'm seeing more in Oklahoma. But where I was based outside of Oklahoma was the time in my life of educational theater and professional theater. So it could have just been circumstantial where the view was different. People had a job to do. You're paid to do this job. And my work in Oklahoma has been all volunteer based. And so that just brings a different type of perspective, type of person out. And so I feel my experience with Oklahoma theater is just willingness and passion.
So you see a lot of passionate people?
I do.
With what you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. And that's that. To me, I think that's vitally important. Just like you said, it's kind of one of those things. If you don't have, I'm not saying you have to be just on fire, but if you don't have a little bit of passion for what we do, you're probably in the wrong thing.
Right.
But again, not to say that, you don't still have a place, just there's got to be something about this that brings you back every time. If not, so you were talking about professional theater, and I've even heard from some actors that the professional side of theater can get very daunting, and people can get burnt out doing that. The number of shows, the way they have to drive to perform, to entertain. And so there's a lot of people that do enjoy the community side of theater because it's not as fast paced. It's not as,
Well, it's like any job. At some point, you might find yourself where you just don't enjoy it anymore because it's a job. It's something you have to do. So when we lose that love, we either need to find another area, like I did. I had to get back on stage to reignite, kind of what I was missing and what I got in for. So I can totally believe that happens on the professional level because your mindset kind of shifts when it doesn't become a joy anymore and it becomes a necessity.
Yeah. So, okay, good. So what kind of stories do you think Oklahoma theater needs more of?
I am starting to see more, and I don't know if it's because I'm looking for it or if it's just naturally happening, but I love to see stories that are just a little more grounded, a little dark. Like the family-friendly stuff is always great, and and who doesn't love a nice distraction for 2 hours to just be happy and enjoy and hear the lovely tunes? I just feel like there's so much more that theater can give. And that's one of the things I love about Chickasha Community Theater is there's something for everyone. This Elephant Man production is part of their After Dark series. And the After Dark is just kind of our tag to let people know these are a little more serious, maybe more for adult audiences, whether it's the subject matter or just the attention span of what you're listening to and watching. But I'm loving to see that more as I am following other theaters on social media, that it seems like more stuff like this is coming out of the woodworks.
Oh, great. I love it. So going back a little bit, we kind of talked just a little bit before we got started here. In doing some of the research, I found out about a little project that you had going on some time back. I think several places it's referred to as a mockumentary.
Yes.
And it referred to a Scottish Terrier. So where did this come about?
So this was from Pete and Mags Productions, and the person in charge of that is based out of Lawton, who I met while I was doing a show down at Lawton Community Theater a few years ago. And this production company basically just put out a casting call for a different show that they were doing. And this wasn't theater, this was like mini movies, that sort of thing. And so I had put in my resume and stuff for that and wasn't chosen for that. But they were like, what do you think about doing a voiceover for this? I didn't know it was about a Scottish Terrier. I was given the script and kind of given a little direction, and I just did the voiceover work and sent it in. And it was really nice to see that come together. And I was like, oh, look at that. Look at that story I just told.
What was the final name of the production? Do you remember?
Oh, no, I don't.
I had it written down, and I'll put it in the show notes when I put this episode out. But go and check it out. You can find it on YouTube. It is actually a cute little, quirky little mockumentary, and it's kind of funny. So you can enjoy that. So as we wrap up, we're heading into our curtain call, which is our off-the-wall questions. Okay. So we're going to hit that with you. Put your thinking cap on, or just the first thing that comes out of your head. If theater were a collection of seasons, which one would you be?
Fall? You asked me an outside question, and I'm not an outside person. So I'm like, I'm going to go with fall, because I feel like fall is brisk enough for a hoodie, but comfortable enough to just kind of be mellow. And that's what I aim for. That is not who I am. That's what I aim for.
Understood. Okay, in a parallel universe, what totally different career would you be thriving in?
I would love to be a food critic. I think that is so interesting, and I don't know all the details of it. And of course, allergies and things always come into play. But I love watching the competition shows, and then you have the judges that are finding all these elements of food that I wouldn't even think to look for or think about. But I find that so interesting.
Yeah. So are you a foodie?
No, just a big girl who likes to eat.
Okay. So what's a role that you haven't played yet, but you dream of tackling some point?
A realistic one would be Jenna from Waitress. And the dream is Elle Woods and Legally Blonde.
Okay. I don't think it's not realistic. Anything can happen. We are in theater. So imagine there's, and I know you're not my age, so you may not understand this analogy, but imagine theater is a mixtape.
Okay.
We used to do these when we were kids. What's the one track that absolutely belongs on that mixtape?
The first one that came to mind was Bicycle by Queen. And I want to say that the reason behind that is because we're all together, right, in the bicycle race with our little bells. And it's not really a competition, even though that competition's always there. But it's just, I want to ride my bicycle, and we're with people that also just want to ride the bicycle.
I absolutely love that answer. I mean, you ask something like that, and you're expecting, something like there's no business like show business, or there's, 42nd Street, or just something like that. That one, I think, is just absolutely amazing. I love that answer. So what is one piece of advice you'd give your younger self before you walked into that first rehearsal?
It's not worth crying over.
Did you cry?
I feel like, yeah, because we talked a little bit about how I guess I was unprepared. I didn't know what I had auditioned for. I didn't know what I was getting into. And I personally have a problem when I know that I don't even care about being the best, but I certainly don't want to be the weakest link. So whatever I can do in any situation, but pertaining to theater, I always ask myself, how can I make sure, like, what can I do to help level up? Whether it's help someone with a quick change, whether it's making sure that I am off book by off book day, because sometimes that's harder than we realize to get those lines memorized when we have everything else going on in our lives. And I'm not doing anyone any favors if I get in my own head and cry about it, whether it's actually giving tears or just internally beating yourself up. Yeah, so don't cry about it.
Okay. It's good advice for everybody out there. Okay, so finish this sentence. Theater is...
For everyone.
There you have it. It's a great way to end the show. We've maxed out all of our questions. So any last parting advice or words of wisdom for everybody listening?
Don't hold yourself back. Don't be the reason to talk yourself out of trying something new and just being happy with yourself.
It's great advice for everybody listening. Hey, Shannan, thank you for being a part of this. This has been a lot of fun. I always love just sitting and talking with you. We've had a lot of conversations over our time together, and this has been no different. So thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you so much.
For everybody listening at home, thank you for giving us just a little bit of time throughout your day. We hope that you continue to listen to us. Be sure to find us on our website, oklahomaonstage.org. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. Connect with us. Send us a message. Drop us a like, whatever. But no matter what, please continue to support the arts.
Oklahoma on stage, the spotlight.